I'm going to outline a few reasons why it's suboptimal to travel solo, and then explain why you should travel with someone that you really trust and that will, lift up your trip and push it to the next level. So let's get into the reasons now.
SAR Experience.
Привit! Welcome to another episode of the Volca Vlogcast with me, Connor Klein. This is the SAR Experience, and today I am in lovely Lviv once again. I have come back here actually with a client. I said that in one of my other videos when I was in Odessa. That's 5 reasons to visit Odessa in summer 2019 that I actually had to leave and head to Lviv, and that's what transpired. And that's why I'm standing here very close. You can see a little bit of the old town behind me in the background. It's really a magical city, and it's a city that you should definitely consider visiting any time of year. I actually also like it in winter, and I have some vlogs from winter in Lviv and also the Easter celebrations that I enjoyed pretty recently. So I'm going to link those below in the description, also up on some cards for you to check out if you haven't gone and seen them. So today's video, I'm going to be outlining to you why you should not travel solo in Ukraine. Before I get into it, actually, I should tell you where I'm staying, because I'm staying in a series of cool apartments here in Lviv, and I'm going to link it below. And while normally I find my apartments, using Airbnb or maybe Booking.com, these other sites, actually, if you just go straight to the agents themselves, then you don't have to pay those fees. So that's actually one of the perks of having traveled here quite a lot in Ukraine, is that I happen to know the agents personally at this stage, having stayed in their apartments several times. So the shortcut of that is it's down below in the description. You're going to see the link there, and you can actually book directly and chat directly with the agent and get the same accommodation that you'd have to pay the fee for. So that's just a little hack for you when you plan to come here in Lviv in Western Ukraine. Definitely go and do that if you're going to stay for more than a few days, and like me, you normally prefer to stay in apartments. So first of all, in today's video, I am not hating on anyone who decides to go traveling alone. Of course not. I actually did that a lot myself, and the main reason that I did that and why traveling solo comes up as an option for a lot of people, and maybe for you as well, is the fact that you don't have anyone in your social circle who actually wants to go traveling to the same destinations as you do. And that can often be the case if you're planning to travel to a country that's less traveled to, which is basically most of the countries that I cover on this channel. For example, here in Ukraine, obviously, but also the other countries like Belarus and soon Russia, because I'm actually going to go to Russia pretty soon. Actually, it's going to be in about 2 weeks' time. And they are not as frequently traveled to as the countries, say, in Western Europe or Central Europe. So countries like Poland or Czech Republic or, Hungary. Croatia is also very popular at the moment. And as a result, it may be hard actually for you to persuade people to come with you, and you may find yourself in the situation that I often found myself in, which was either I don't go to Ukraine, I don't come here, or I go somewhere else, because I got to go somewhere else with my friends because they just don't want to come here. They're either scared or just don't believe that they're going to have such an amazing time. And I know that you know that you will have a phenomenal time when you come here, or I've got to come here on my own. So I always choose personally to actually come here on my own as a result. It wasn't because I thought it was optimal to travel on my own, it was just out of necessity. I actually chose the location over being able to travel to other places with my friends, because the friends at the time, at least 10 years ago, were not open to coming here. Obviously that's all changed. I have a lot of friends who are really interested in coming here and come here with me. You're going to see them in lots of my travel vlogs. You're going to have noticed them there at either on camera or in cameo rolls. So I don't tend to travel actually that much solo anymore, and it's really made it very obvious to me that it is suboptimal to travel alone. I'm normally traveling now with friends or with my clients. So what was the genesis of this video was actually I was with Mr. Bald, another YouTuber. You probably know his channel is Bald and Bankrupt. Again, I'll just put a link in the description if you haven't come across his content, which is pretty phenomenal and extremely popular since he started filming here in the last few months in countries like Belarus or Ukraine or in Russia. We were together in Gomel, and he had to leave suddenly, so I actually found myself in Gomel eastern Belarus near the Russian-Ukrainian borders alone. It was actually the first time in a while I'd actually been on a solo mission in Eastern Europe, and I thought, wow, it is very different, and I really see the big difference between when I travel solo and when I travel with someone who's either a friend or a client. Now, I know there is the other option that's been facilitated by the internet and by apps in the last few years, which is actually travel with kind of a travel buddy, which is basically someone who is interested in traveling to the same region as you, and then you can kind of connect on sites. I'm not even sure the names of the sites, but I know it exists, so that you don't have to travel alone. Now, personally, you could meet perfect matches and cool people there, of course, but in general, I'm not a fan of traveling with someone that I don't know, or someone just traveling with someone out of necessity to have someone with me. That just doesn't appeal to me personally, and so I wouldn't encourage you to do that, because hanging out with someone that you're not really interested in or you're not a good fit with, because we both know it's pretty hard to find people who are a good match to travel with or to befriend in general in life. So picking people off websites who may just be interested in traveling in Eastern Europe just to have someone to travel is not something I recommend. Personally, it's not something I would do. I would rather go solo in that case than travel with someone that I wasn't sure I was going to get on and have a great time with, because that's a big burden and a big risk to take. But there is that option there as well, of course, to do that. So in this video, this reasonably short podcast, I hope I do tend to ramble on a little bit. I'm going to outline a few reasons why it's suboptimal to travel solo, and then explain why you should travel with someone that you really trust and that will, lift up your trip and push it to the next level. So let's get into the reasons now. So the number one reason why I advise against solo travel in a country like Ukraine is definitely the amount of time it's going to take you to figure out where everything is. Now, I mentioned this trip where I was in Gomel with Mr. Bald, and Gomel is a city that has very little resources about online, and traveling in Ukraine is going to be pretty similar. Whilst I know that it has increased in tourism dramatically in the last few years, it is hard to get your bearings in a new place, and especially if it's not as well traveled and not as maybe tourist friendly. Now, cities like Kiev, here in Lviv, and in Odessa in the center, it's going to be fine. You're going to see lots of things, but you're not going to figure out where the best places are that easy. That takes a good bit of reconnaissance. So either you're going to have to know someone who's going to give you all those tips, or you're going to have to divide up the time with someone who you're traveling with to figure that out. And I actually had a client who wrote me over the weekend asking me for tips about St. Petersburg because he had landed and he needed that kind of information, or exactly where to go at that particular time. Now, I haven't gone to St. Petersburg. I've only been there once, and it was 10 years ago. I am planning to go there in 2 or 3 weeks' time, so I will have the reconnaissance done and have people on the ground who are going to help me with that in the meantime. But I understand exactly his problem, which is like he's there, and of course he can go online and get suggestions, but knowing exactly what's going to be tailored for his and for your particular taste, it's not going to be easy, because a lot of the information is kind of generic. It suits maybe one person, not another. Tips you're going to find in a guidebook is not going to be great. Of course, you can go on YouTube and look for, maybe if you follow me, so you're going to look for my tips, because there's definitely a rapport there between us and a relatability factor where my interests are going to correlate strongly with yours, and that's definitely something very important. But figuring this stuff out, like I know, because I went, for example, to Gomel pretty recently, and it takes time. And if you're on a trip and like my client was there for the weekend, forget it. You're not going to figure it out unless you're extremely lucky. Now, if you do have someone who, of course, you're traveling with, then that cuts the time in half, because you can divide up that. Even better if you have some sort of person, like kind of like a mentor who's helping you with the traveling, who's already been there and figured that out. Like for me, when I went, here in Lviv, to give you a very pertinent example, figuring out the places, like I stayed several times for 2 or 3 weeks, and I would say it was only after the third, I'd say at least the end of the second trip, that I actually figured out where all the places were that were cool, what times of the week or day, evening, that's the best time to go to them. So doing all that takes time, and if you're on a short trip and you're traveling solo on top of it, it's going to be really, really difficult. So that's why I encourage you to travel with someone else, so you can divide up the time and your resources are therefore doubled. Of course, if you're 2 people, even better, it's tripled. You can figure all that stuff out, or you're going to have to go externally and find some sort of mentor basically, or some sort of provider, or maybe you have a close confidant or a friend who's been here, who knows everything, and even local people at times. I mean, you got to judge exactly their interests, because they're probably going to tell you lots of different things. I went to a very cool party here yesterday, and the only reason I know about it is because I've been here several times and I actually know the organizer. So I've been following him, and I saw on Instagram that there was that he had an event up here in the High Castle. So that was just something that, having been here and knowing the city, was great. And having your eyes out, it's definitely the way to do it, and double or triple the eyes and informed eyes, and people who have the same interests and objective as you is also what's key to it, because there's no point in dividing up the work with someone who has, has incompatible interests with yours. So in Grosso Sommo, definitely time, it's a very precious resource, it's very scarce, and you want to be maximizing that and doubling, tripling it if possible with the right kind of support. So reason number 2, and quite pertinent when you are traveling alone in Eastern Europe, is security and safety. And that probably goes for everyone in the world, and I made videos saying that I don't find Ukraine dangerous, but a lot of guys who come here fall victim to scams. And that normally means that some girl just basically uses them as an ATM. Cue my 5 reasons never to date a Ukrainian, and 5 more reasons never to date a Ukrainian, where I advise you and warn you about a lot of the reasons that you should consider against dating Ukrainian girls. Of course, I'm not hating on them overall, and I have a 5 reasons to date a Ukrainian video as well. Everything, of course, is linked down, description up in cards. So definitely, if you're traveling alone, I mean, it's obvious, people don't know where you are, you're more vulnerable because you're not in a group, you don't have someone who can, watch out for you. So definitely, obviously, traveling with someone there, and someone who's knowledgeable and again has the same interests as you and has your interests at heart is really important for that. So here in Ukraine, a common scam that seems to have been happening quite recently, because I came across a guy actually came up to me in the street in Odessa and told me this had happened to him, is that you're befriended by someone who appears to be also a traveler and builds up that very quick rapport with you, and then invites you to have a drink. They spike your drink basically and then rob you, seems to be the scam. Now, in this gentleman's case who came up to me in the street, he told me he was robbed of $2,000, and the guy claimed to be French. Whether the guy was actually a foreigner or not, it's not clear to me. He could have been a French, even, to hold up the story. He could have been Ukrainian, or he could have been with someone else just claiming. Maybe he thought that being French would be more trustworthy, but basically you have to be very, very careful, and that's always going to be harder if you're traveling on your own. So security is a big issue. I don't think Ukraine is a dangerous country to travel to. I definitely think traveling Western Europe is overall a little bit more dangerous, but here you do have to be careful. In Ukraine, that's a little bit different with the countries around it. I find them safer, but here you have these particular scams that target foreign guys. A lot of times it's just that you'll end up going on a date and the girl will use you as an ATM, as I said, but it could also be something a lot more serious in terms of security. I did travel solo on my first trip to Ukraine, and I did have a major issue, which was I was drugged in Sevastopol in Crimea. Now, I relate that in another Vodcast episode, so if you're really interested to know what exactly happened to me, you can go and watch that one again up in a card and below in the description for the link. But basically, I met a girl, I brought back to my apartment, and then I woke up 36 hours later. For more of the details, go watch the full episode. But I wasn't robbed or anything. I just lost a day of my life unconscious, and I wasn't injured. So I got off pretty light, but that doesn't happen to everybody. So you definitely want to be very conscious of your security. And that is something that is a lot harder if you're traveling alone. So you definitely want to have someone you trust traveling with you, or of course, you're traveling with a mentor or some sort of guide, someone who's guiding you along the way. Now, another reason is probably just really a minor one at the end of the day. It is a little bit cheaper to travel with someone than to travel alone, because you can share costs, like you're taking that Uber in for the train station, it's going to be half price. It's not going to be much money here in Ukraine. I mean, maybe you could share an apartment with someone, that would bring it down, and accommodation is a major expense when you're traveling anywhere. along with the nightlife and partying, of course, and Ukrainian girls, if you're not careful, if you're going out on dates with them and they're just interested in spending your money, that's definitely going to be expensive for you. And that's something you can't, well, that is something maybe you could share with a friend a little bit, but basically, yeah, it just tends to be a little bit cheaper because of those things that you are going to share. Maybe you rent a car, or, you know, share your accommodation, and it gets a little bit cheaper. So that is a reason. I think that's a minor one for traveling alone versus traveling with someone, but it is something to consider. Now, I think the next and final really important one is energy. And this is something that's probably not so obvious to you. I find that if I'm traveling my own, like when I was in Gomel, and actually I should say right now I'm on my own because I have a client next week, and I'm going to focus here actually and work on some new things with someone who's just started working with me outside of obviously making videos and stuff. So I actually do find myself on my own because I was with my client until yesterday, but it hasn't hit me yet. So basically it's the energy level, because all that energy for going around, interacting with people, partying, meeting girls, it has to all come from here, from you, or from me in this case, and from you if you are traveling on your own. And that is not obvious, and especially if you're depends where in the spectrum between introvert and extrovert, because that's not really about being outgoing necessarily. It's more about where your energy comes from. So does your energy come from, you know, other people, or do you find that overwhelming? So that's something for you to judge. But for me, I'm actually in between on the introvert and extroverted scale. So it's not that obvious for me to get that energy all the time for myself and to, you know, interacting with other people. And it is something that, you know, I have to focus on working on a little bit, because I definitely notice the difference than when I'm with one of my close friends who I travel with, who you see in these vlogs, or with a client. You know, there's just so much energy and we're all giving each other energy and pushing yourselves, and interacting with people around is easier and easier as a result. So when you're on your own, that is, for me, the toughest thing is to get that energy for myself. And that's why I think it's just really a lot better to travel with someone who's cool, who you relate to. So that's either going to be a very close friend or someone else that you bring along with you for the trip. And ideally, that would be someone who's got the same objectives as you. I don't think it works otherwise. Or someone who's extremely knowledgeable about where you're traveling to. Now, this energy is going to be compounded if you've come here to, say, obviously to Ukraine, whether it's in Lviv, where people tend to use Ukrainian in daily life, or if it's in, for example, Odessa on in the south of Ukraine, where people tend to use Russian in everyday life. If you don't speak either of those languages, it makes it, I find, harder to get the energy, because everything that's going on around you is in a language that you can't understand, really interact with directly. Of course, you can use English, and there will be lots of young people who speak English for sure. It doesn't mean you're going to be like a mute. That back in 2009, 10 years ago when I came here, you were pretty close to a mute if you didn't speak any Russian, at least, or Ukrainian, because it was really hard then. It has gotten a lot easier. I don't want to exaggerate that you're going to not going to be able to talk to anyone or something like that. And definitely younger women will have basic English. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy always to interact with them because of the language barrier, but there are solutions to that. So basically, even though I speak Russian and some Ukrainian, it is, there's always that little bit of extra difficulty when you're traveling alone to get that energy and to open people, basically, because of the language barrier. So that's something also to be cognizant of. So that's my explanation basically for why you should lean towards traveling with someone else as opposed to traveling solo when you come here to Ukraine. As I said at the outside, I'm not hating on anyone who decides to travel solo. There are a lot of, good reasons. Well, not really good reasons, but you may just turn out that you don't have anyone to go with. If you have experiences of traveling solo versus traveling with good friends, definitely drop a comment below and let me know and the other viewers how you got on, and maybe things that you did to overcome the obstacles that were presented. If you've enjoyed this content, then definitely give it a big thumbs up. That's what I look for, not necessarily the number of views on a video, but actually engagement, as it's called. It's like whether you enjoyed it or not. And we're at the end of another Vlogcast episode, more or less. So definitely, if you haven't hit the notification bell, just hit that bell there so that you get notified when I'm making more videos from here in Lviv and Ukraine, because it's going to be a monster summer in Odessa. Now, you've been watching these videos from me if you're at the end of a Vodcast episode. And, you know, why don't you come here and live the Zara experience with me? Now, this experience is not for everybody. Like, if you're not someone who wants to push your boundaries, if you're not a person that wants to go somewhere that's a little bit less traveled, again, which is part obviously connected to the theme of this video, then this is not going to be for you. If you want more of a backpacker style trip, this is also not going to be for you, because you know that kind of experience you can get by going to youth hostel. You won't be traveling alone because you'll meet all these other random people. I actually did that when I was a student once in Italy. I actually found that really I didn't have much rapport with the other people. I just basically hung out with them to have someone to hang out with, and as I said in this video, that's really not optimal. So if that is what you're looking for, then the Zara experience is not for you. It's more high end than that. We're going to be going to, you know, the places that you see in my Instagram, for example, like, you know, the best restaurants, bars, clubs. We're going to be living it up. We're going to be it's going to be an unforgettable experience for you. You're going to be hanging out with my crew in the cities. Also going to be, of course, meeting and interacting with beautiful women from the region, as you see in my videos, the kind of girls that I hang out with and that I have relationships obviously with here, and that my clients have when they come and we hang out. We meet new girls, or you know, I introduce them to girls that obviously I'm friends with because I can vouch for them. So if you're interested, you know, in living the Zara experience yourself and having just unforgettable experience for a short amount of time, because I appreciate that you're unlikely to be able to come and just hang out here like me and live your life all the time here in Eastern Europe, in countries like Ukraine, or maybe it's going to be Belarus or Russia or somewhere else in the region. But you can live that for like a weekend, a week, 10 days, and I'm the person to guide you through everything, keep you safe, avoid all those scams, give you all the energy you're going to need to make this unbelievable. So if that is something that you think that you're up to, then write me a message. You can email me at connorklein@zaraexperience.com, or you can DM me, send me a direct message on Instagram. My handle is Zara Experience. And what's going to happen there is I'm going to send you a series of questions just to see if we're a good fit, potentially to work together. As I said, it's not for everybody, so I want to make sure that I don't waste your time if it's not something that realistically you're going to be down for. And obviously also my own time is precious, and that's also what I try to emphasize just before I mention my email address is, like, you know, if you want those kind of more, you know, a romance tour where it's like, you know, a marriage agency kind of shenanigans, then I can't help you with that either. That is not living the Zara experience. So definitely only if you want to push your boundaries and come here and have an unforgettable travel experience and meet beautiful women, go to best places, and just have something, you know, the stories that I tell here, they will be your stories. Write me a message, either on Instagram or by email. And after those series of questions, if I think it's a good fit, we're going to jump on a 10-minute free strategy call, and we're going to go into detail, get to know each other a bit more, and then we'll decide, you know, where's a good location for us to meet up in person, and you know, what kind of time, then get that all the timing and all that good stuff sorted. And it very soon it could be you, because what are you doing just next weekend? Like, I'm here on a Sunday in Lviv, and probably I'm going with a client next weekend to Minsk. But that could also be you. You could also be coming with us to Minsk in Belarus, for example. After that, I'm going to, you know, when I come back from Russia, I'm going to be hitting Odessa on the Black Sea in the south of Ukraine. Could also be here in lovely Lviv, all those crazy theme bars. Just it's, I think, Eastern Europe's most romantic city, in a sense. I'm going to make a video with that theme pretty soon as well. But it's just such a beautiful place. And with this weather, man, it's really, really terrific, and you can have all that amazing party experience. So definitely write me a DM or an email if you think that you are down for living the Zara experience yourself, and we will talk very soon. That is it from Lviv for me this evening. Now I'm going to go and live a little bit of the Zara experience on a Sunday with some friends. Going to meet up with a girlfriend right now. So I will see you very soon in the next video. It may even be, it's actually going to be another one from Ukraine, most likely later in the week. So see you then. Do pobачення, which is goodbye in Ukrainian from lovely Lviv, Ukraine. Ciao.
Zara Experience.